What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and this is Regular Guy Training. Now, before I go ahead and get this video started, I will let you guys know that the 6th through the 9th of July, we have our Pistol 1 and 2 class again. It's where we're setting next month's stuff up. There's going to be 3 different weeks in August, but I haven't figured out exactly what classes that we're going to teach and in what order. But the 6th through the 9th of July, we will have our Pistol 1 and Pistol 2 classes respectively. And our Pistol 1 is a 1,400 round 2-day class, and our Pistol 2 class is a 1,000 round pistol class, obviously. And for both, you'll, like a couple of things that, just to note, is that for both you'll need stuff like a gun-mounted or a handheld flashlight. That's mandatory for the course because we will do night shooting and stuff like that. It'll be out here in Adairville, Kentucky, on the range that you see me shooting on right now. So if you have any interest in that whatsoever, and I highly encourage you to, because I love to teach, and I started, and obviously the name change, Regular Guy Training LLC, means that I started up a school. And you guys already know that I'm impatient about doing just about everything, so until we have a website that is fully functional and stuff, and we're pretty much getting ready to put the bow on that, we're going to go ahead and do it this way. But seeing as we haven't put the bow on it, I'm just going to go ahead and let you guys know now before there isn't enough time for you guys to take off work and stuff like that. But now on to the video. The review that I'm getting ready to do here, and you guys obviously know what the review is about because you read the title, is not about the rifle that this sling is sitting on, but the sling itself. And yes, there will be a review on the rifle. Now, this is the Haley Strategic single 2-point convertible sling. Now, I gotten a lot of requests on reviewing this particular sling and stuff like that, and how it compares to its older counterpart from Magpul, like the MS3s and 4s and stuff like that. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try very hard not to compare it to other slings. What I'm going to do is I'm going to review it based on the merits of the individual sling. Mostly because when you start getting into comparisons and stuff like that, too heavy, you start losing sight of the individual review itself. And that's my personal belief on the matter, so I'm going to go ahead and just review the sling. Now, first and foremost, it has things that most people just expect out of a rifle sling these days. First and foremost, its default configuration, or what they sell the most, is QD, or Quick Detach. I don't have that much of a problem with QD. The principal complaint that I would personally have about QD is your ability to detach things or convert this guy easily, and it's not necessarily as mounted up on its own, because all you really have to do, because if it's taut on a rifle and stuff like that, you pretty much just kind of have to peel it back on your own, push on it, and it comes out when it's mounted to itself. However, when it's mounted to a rifle, that becomes slightly more difficult depending on the stock position that you use. Now, on this particular rifle, I have a little bit of an issue with it because of where I personally arrange stocks. My default positioning for a stock is about here. This is usually how I set it up because it functions equally well both while I'm slick or while I'm using a plate carrier. Now, the issue that I have with this is getting in here, depressing this, and pulling this out, and having the room to do so. And there can be reasons to detach the rifle from the sling, particularly if you have to do stuff like one-handed stoppage clearance and stuff like that. And that becomes a little bit of an issue all by itself, because having to do something like a one-handed Type 3 stoppage clearance is really difficult to begin with once you have to fuss with this and get it loose. Now, that being the principal complaint about it, I don't really have that much of an issue because it can be done, and it can be done readily. It just takes a little bit more effort to do than something like a regular clamping system. So that isn't that bad. And while it's a little bit of an issue, like I said, it's not a deal breaker for me. It's not something that'll make me walk away from this choice of sling. However, there are some other things that I find a little irritating. Literally, number one is the thickness of the sling, and essentially, I'm not saying that this is like sandpaper, okay? I'm really not. However, I am saying that this is a little bit rough around the edges. Not just on the sling itself, but on the pad itself too. This is an issue with me, and I know that there's going to be a lot of trolls that are just going to be like, oh man, the fuck up, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's cool. Have you ever tried to walk around with this thing for 8 to 12 to 14 hours? Because I have, and it sucks. Like, it honestly, once you start walking around with this thing for any real serious amount of time, it starts becoming a huge pain in the ass constantly. Irritating the skin and rubbing into stuff and all that. And look, I get it. There's going to be a lot of people that are just like, man up, and I understand those people, and I completely understand where they're coming from, especially if they're coming from both the civilian world and or possibly the SWAT world, because they will wear these things for a lesser amount of time than somebody like soldiers and stuff will. Not all, because some SWAT dudes will end up on site for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours waiting on things to happen or not happen, depending. But I've gotten a lot of questions from soldiers about this particular sling, and I have to be honest with you here. If you're a dude that carries a rifle around on like patrols and stuff like that for anything longer than 4 hours, which is all of them, I would highly suggest that you not get this sling, mostly because of A, the material, and B, how it's essentially cut around the edges, really. Now, I haven't heard of any individual reports about this, but something that does kind of concern me is the stitching. A lot of really good, really high quality slings will have double and triple stitching and stuff like that around certain areas. And what does concern me is, okay, I can see that there's good stitching on here, but it is already starting to fray. You can see that. And I haven't been using this for too terribly long. Okay, I've only been using this for cumulatively something like a month of constant on time, and the stitching is already starting to fray on something as essential as like the pad here. And when you start looking at other things like the breakaway and the stitching that's made for this, like you can actually see the threads in here. These will get cut. Like, that's going to happen, and all that's going to do is peel this material away. And once you start to peel that material away and give other things leverage on this particular portion of the sling, it doesn't matter how awesome the stitching is back here, it's going to get peeled up, just rubbing on gear and people and all kinds of random stuff. So personally, I have serious doubts about the survivability of the sling based on the stitching alone. Now, if you're using this for like a self or a home defense rifle and stuff like that, that's a non-factor. This will start to become a problem after years of use, and really, it's on you to make that choice. However, if you do use this for heavier use applications and stuff like that, and I worded that all kinds of fucked up, basically, if you're in a job or a lot in life that requires the use of a sling for long periods of time, this sling's gonna die. Like, it's gonna die really fast. So, to that end, if you have that lot in life, I would highly suggest something else. Okay. But, as far as individual usability, it works great. As far as being able to loosen it up and tighten it up and all that stuff, the cords and all that jazz work just fine. It loosens up and tightens up real easy. There's no issues there whatsoever. Its ability to hook up and detach from itself onto other components of the rifle, it's right there. So the principal complaint that I have is individual user comfort for a lot in life that requires a lot of sling wearing, and the survivability of the sling. That's really where I find the most doubtable aspects of the sling, in all honesty, because just looking at it and stuff and seeing just over time, and not much time, like I said, totaling the amount of time I've worn this sling is about a month. And if just after a month of honestly really light use, because this is in an instructor capacity and not in a patrolling capacity or anything like that, or even just deployed and wearing a sling for a long period of time, or you're out in the field just wearing it and stuff like that, and already seeing portions of the sling start to fray, I have very serious doubts as to whether or not the sling is going to live for a long period of time. So, if you have any questions, go ahead and post that in the comments section below. If you want to support us through Patreon and see exactly what it is that we can do for you and for other dudes like soldiers and stuff that are coming out to take training for free, that the Patreon supporters are not essentially, but almost, that are actually paying for almost all the way at this point. I would suggest to go to the link in the description below if you want to check us out on our little discussion page on Facebook. There's a link for that in the description below. And remember, guys, a regular guy's firearm is the last defense against tyranny. Be easy.